Makes me happy.
What is happening, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock, and there's actually not going to be a show tomorrow night because I don't know if you've looked at the slate tomorrow, Eric, but there is none. There's going to be no slate tomorrow night. We've got afternoon games, and then it's like 1 or 2 night games. So main slate is going to be tomorrow afternoon. I'll be on Live Before Lock with Josh, and for today, it's going to be Eric and I back together breaking down the slate. Apologies that I wasn't here yesterday, but everything was cool in the gang. I'm sitting around, hang out on my computer, and all of a sudden I go, boy, my stomach is bothering me. I got to go take a shit. And then I didn't stop for about 24 hours. I was very sick. So I'm back. Apologies I wasn't there yesterday, but it could have been worse because I could have been like Reese McGuire in a parking lot somewhere. Today, though, we got the show to break down this night slate. We had the afternoon slate. We've got some really weird ownership to talk about as well for this night slate. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well. Had some really good lineups here in the early going. Was looking like I could win both mini maxes. Doesn't look like I'm going to, but still going to have a really good afternoon. Had a couple of nice hits in the betting streets. Hopefully some more betting hits coming up a little bit later. It is a Coors Field laden early slate, so hopefully you guys jam some Colorado in your lives. I did some of that. Weird to see no ownership coming in on them, but excited for this evening slate. How about you?
Yeah, we got, I assume this is the highest scoring game of the year. The Rockies beat the Red Sox 20-7 was the final score there. So just an obscene amount of runs scored in Colorado and then a couple of games going on. But yeah, it was, looks like pretty good early slate. I'm like 3Xing my money at the moment. And then, subject change a little bit, but with that Coors Field game, and I assume there's not going to be too many crazy changes, especially because the starting pitchers are out of the 2 games that are remaining. But now I've got the night slate to talk about here, Eric. And the first thing that comes to my mind here, other than the fact that you guys should like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you've not already, as well as a shout out to Chris Williams, who just gifted us 5 YouTube memberships, is on the high end of pitching. I don't understand what is going on with Tyler Glasnow here. He is projected to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. He's coming off the injured list. We just saw him. Well, we didn't just see him. We got a report that in his simulated game, he only threw 60 pitches. I mean, it's a decent matchup for him against the San Francisco Giants. I have a couple of lineups with Tyler Glasnow in them, but I'm not going to be anywhere near this mid 30% ownership on him, Eric, because I think we're probably getting like 65, 70 pitches out of Tyler Glasnow.
I'm with you. It was actually 58 pitches, so even fewer than 60. I don't think it necessarily matters. I mean, we're looking at about the same thing, 75 pitches. I basically topped him out at. And it's not like he looked good against Milwaukee last time out or San Francisco last time out. We saw a couple of issues where, Tyler Glasnow, he's always had the strikeout stuff, but there's always been some hard hit that creeps up from time to time with him. I'm completely with you where I don't understand this ownership. Now, it's not something I want to get to a crazy amount of the other side with San Francisco because Glasnow is still very good. And then you're running into bullpens and amongst the best in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers year in, year out. So it's going to be an interesting spot for me for sure. But I think Robbie Ray is live to go more pitches considering he went 78 in that last AAA game. So on the other side of this one, you're getting a cheaper guy in Robbie Ray and no ownership coming in on him. I don't really know what the field's doing either, Greg.
So let's talk about the other high-end pitchers, because if you and also, are you outright fading Tyler Glasnow or just underweight to the field? Because I do have, like I said, a couple of lineups with Glasnow. He has enough upside where if he does go out and pitch even like 4 or 5 innings, you could see a scenario puts up 20 plus fantasy points. And I don't necessarily love the other pay up option. So I do have some of Tyler Glasnow just way underweight to the field.
Yeah, that's kind of the same approach I'm taking. I mean, we only have so many places to go, but we do have Garrett Cole, Jack Flaherty, Tanner Bybee, Matt Waldron against Washington, I think, even is somebody that has sneaky upside. And then Chase McDermott, who we'll talk about. I mean, you want to talk about upside for no ownership. Chase McDermott probably fits the tab for me too. I am very confused by ownership today. So yeah, if it's going to be a third of the lineups for the field, I'm going to be right around 10% or less when it all comes to the flip.
So here are the other pay up options we have in their ownership. Garrett Cole is 26% owned. Jack Flaherty is 17% owned. Nathan Eovaldi, 33% owned. And Tanner Bybee also 33% owned. So the field is pretty spread amongst these high-end pitching options. They're 8,500 or more expensive. if Tyler Glass now is not your most exposed pitcher on the high end, certainly not mine, who is the number one pitcher in your opinion to spend up for today?
It is Nathan Eovaldi against the White Sox. 8,800. Does he count as a spend up, or do we have to say
Yeah,
9K?
he was in that group I listed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Nathan
for
Eovaldi for me is the guy I have the most of. The White Sox are abysmal as an offense, top to bottom, dead last in WRC plus against right-handed pitching, 24% K rate. You go through the individual hitters, it is just get by one of them, or basically like one and a half of them if you want to give Tommy Pham the nod here as well. I'm okay with just getting to as much of him as humanly possible. I mean, he's primarily all fastball, wind coming in, but I mean, it's going to be closed. It'll be a closed roof there in Arlington. It's not a great ballpark for hitting by any means. And 3 implied run total on the other side of it with Vegas. We've got him at a, what, 3.5 opposition total here for the White Sox in our top pitchers tool. Across the board, Nathan Eovaldi, I've got him in 40% of my lineups. Not going to be making as big of a stand as I made with Hunter Green yesterday. Hunter Green, or was it 2 days ago we did the show? Or was it yesterday? Anyway, I can't remember which day it was specifically. We talked about the Hunter Green one where he was in over half of my lineups. I believe that was Monday slate when you and I did the show. But I'm still feeling pretty good about Nathan Eovaldi in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, that is for myself as well. If we are ranking the pitchers in terms of the exposures I have here, it is Eovaldi 1, it's Tanner Bybee 2, and it's Garrett Cole 3. And there's also tiers to this where Eovaldi and Bybee are each in close to half of my lineups, and then Garrett Cole is in a quarter of my lineups. But those are my 3 most rostered pitchers. There's clear tiers to them, and there's a big drop off where it's kind of like a hodgepodge of other guys that are kind of mixed into lineups. So in terms of like Jack Flaherty, really tough matchup for him on the road against Cleveland. His strikeout prop opened, I saw this morning, at 4.5, a team in Cleveland that makes a lot of contact on the road. So it's hard to see a ton of upside for Jack Flaherty in a different way that's hard to see the upside for Tyler Glasnow. Glasnow is going to be capped because of pitch count, whereas Flaherty is going to be capped because this is not a great strikeout matchup for him, and then also on the road in Cleveland. So, like I said, Eovaldi 1 for me, Bybee 2, Garrett Cole 3. Is that the order you have these guys as well, or do you see it a little bit differently?
No, I've got 24% Garrett Cole right around the field. I've got 10%. I'm going to get to more Jack Flaherty before we get to the flip of things. I'm trying to do a couple of things where I still get some exposure to Tyler Glasnow. For me, that's just easiest going to the Sims tool and changing the projection before I run some of the stuff. So for me, I'm just kind of like reducing it by 75%. And I'm still going to get to some Tyler Glasnow, it would appear. But Nathan Eovaldi 1, Garrett Cole 2, Jack Flaherty 3, same order.
All right. Yeah. And my final exposure on Glasnow, or at least close to my final exposure, because we still have some lineups to come out, but kind of gives me a good idea of what my exposure to him will end up being when everything's finished. I currently have 3.3% of Tyler Glasnow out of my top 150 lineup. So not somebody who's going to be an important piece of my lineups whatsoever, just 3% of him, much more exposed to some of these other guys on the high end. And I do think
exposed like Reese McGuire.
Yeah, go ahead.
Exposed like Reese McGuire.
Yeah, exactly. The exact same way. The exact same way. By the way, if you guys didn't see the Reese McGuire and Cal Quantrill stuff, look it up. It's hilarious. Cash games. I do think you want to be rostering guys from this upper tier. I know the field is all over Glasnow. Said it doesn't really make any sense to me, though. It is pretty clear. I think Eovaldi and Bybee, those are your cash game pitchers. Do you agree, or is there somebody else you would mix in there? Would you go Cole over Eovaldi or Bybee, or just the Eovaldi-Bybee combo?
Eovaldi Bybee.
All right.
I think it'd be
that's
Eovaldi
going to
Bybee.
be same for me here. Anything else you want to mention about these spend up pitchers, Eric?
No, Tyler Glasnow, I'm with you. Again, the top pitchers tool, it's assuming more of a full workload here. I'm doing some stuff in the Sims tool to be able to do the exact same thing you're doing, where I'm just not going to get to him nearly as much, and I'm just fine with it.
All right, let's go and look at the next range of pitchers. And by the way, nobody else is really all that popular on this slate. Once you get below 8,500, the only pitcher that's double-digit ownership, it's Yariel Rodriguez, 12% at $6,500. So I guess we just grouped together all of these cheap pitchers together. Now, the priority by the field, and for us as well, Eric, is these pitchers like Bybee and Eovaldi and Garrett Cole. But if you were going below this tier, Is there one particular pitcher that stands out to you more than any of the others?
Chase McDermott.
All right. Talk to me about Chase McDermott, who spells his name pretty stupidly. If you're trying to look up Chase, but this was an issue for me earlier, trying to look him up on Fangraphs, is his first name is spelled Chase, but Chayce McDermott, pitching on the road against Miami Marlins. So it is going to be a good matchup for him. But tell me what you like about Chase McDermott.
Strikeout stuff. Only strikeout stuff. I will keep it at strikeout stuff. Now, 32.3% at AAA this season, 31.2% at AAA last season. If you were to have 31, 32% here at Major League Baseball, I would be completely floored, shocked, everything. But the bat has him, 21.3%, but that's on the low end. We've got Zips up there at 24.2%, ATC sitting there at 26.4%. Looking at my sheet, it just seems as though it's a guy with a pretty high xFIP, somebody who's going to be north of 4.5 potentially there at the big league level, 4.27 xFIP at AAA. But let's keep in mind that we're playing a game that is all revolving around upside and ownership. And I got to think that Chase McDermott, given a full workload, he's falling into probably the best matchup you could have for your major league debut and potentially the best ballpark you could be having your major league debut. So it's kind of like an unbelievably good run out for him. It's a sub-4 implied total with Vegas. I don't see any reason that I wouldn't take shots on him, considering he's 7.5% owned at 8K. I get that Matt Waldron is more of a known quantity, and but he's pulling no ownership, so you could say a lot of the same stuff there. Throw the knuckleballer out there for a couple of lineups, but like if you told me somebody put up 25 that was underneath Tanner Bybee, I think I would pick Chase McDermott as the guy most likely to do it.
So I do have I'm overweight to McDermott. I have him about 10% of lineups. Not like a significant stand or anything, but I do think he's worthwhile. I wish he was cheaper. I'm kind of surprised by the price tag just because every single pitcher that we've seen called up this year that wasn't like a Paul Skeens sort of pitcher, which is only Paul Skeens, have been like the flat mint 4K on DraftKings or like 5,000 or 5,600 or something. So at first I was like, who's Chase McDermott? Oh, good matchup against the Marlins. I'm probably going to end up playing a lot of him in DFS. And then I'm reserving my lineups, running stuff through the Sims. I'm like, how come I'm not getting to Chase McDermott? Like, oh, he's actually $8,000. That's like the only sticking point with him is that for just a few $100s more, you're getting to Tanner Bybee, you're getting to Nathan Eovaldi. So I'm with you in terms of I think he's a good contrarian option. I'm just not going crazy with him because the price point is where it's at on him. I also have some interest in Yariel Rodriguez just because he is so cheap. And the big concern with Rodriguez over the course of the season has been how cautious they've been with his pitch counts. But I don't think he's that terrible. He is pretty good stuff. He does have the ability to generate swing and misses and strikeouts. He's going to also be pitching against the Tampa Bay Rays, who are a team that are prone to striking out. So you look at the numbers for Rodriguez, 3.67 ERA, 4.16 expected ERA, not terrible, 25% strikeout rate. That's solid. So for the price point, I think it really mitigates a lot of the risk of how deep he might not be going into the game because you've got a guy at a $6,500 price point where I just don't think there's anybody priced around him that is comparable upside, Eric.
I'm probably with you. Edward Cabrera, I have a little bit of purely because of the ballpark where he's terrible. He's horrible. We'll talk about Baltimore for sure, a team that I'm probably going to play more than the field of. But Edward Cabrera, I can at least make a case for getting to a little bit at 6,300. But you told me somebody under 7K or Mitchell Parker or under goes for 20. I would be picking Yariel Rodriguez pretty much every time. Tampa Bay 10th in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Not the most intimidating offense. An offense that's starting to get its bearings a little bit too late, if you ask me. But Richie Palacios, Isaac Paredes, these are not your normal 1-2 hitters here in baseball. Paredes has been all right, but Ben Rortvedt and Taylor Walls down there batting ninth. I mean, these are some nobodies also. There should be an extra boost there with a couple of those guys, those nobodies in the lineup.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add at pitcher? Because we've hit on the guys that are most important to my lineups. You had briefly mentioned Robbie Ray before. Yep. Is he somebody who you're actually getting to a decent amount of, or just any other thoughts at pitcher?
Yeah, so Sean V, I'm shocked he hasn't thrown this out there, but he dominates Dodger Stadium. I don't know if you're aware of that. But anyway, Robbie Ray has had a really good history against the Dodgers for whatever reason in Dodger Stadium. He's had some massive like 10, 12, 14 strikeout games. I've attended a couple of them where it's just insane to watch him back in the Arizona days mow through the Dodgers. But Robbie Ray got up to 78 pitches at AAA. And you go to some of his minor league numbers, which are harder to find because they weren't over on FanGraphs. So then he had to go to the minor league tab over on Baseball Savant and go find your way around there last night. It was a disaster. But with the Sacramento River Cats, he's had three total appearances, 2 starts. He's had 12 strikeouts there in 10 2/3. But before that, he had 18 at A-ball, which doesn't sound like anything there, but that was an 11 2/3. I mean, there's obviously some good breaking stuff that is going well for him right now. He's never been a crazy high velocity dude, tapping out in 2022 around 93, 94 miles per hour. I expect that stays about the same, but the breaking stuff has kind of always been there for Robbie Ray. He just gives up a lot of hard hit in the process. I'll get to some Dodgers on the other side, but I do like him in single digit ownership to get to around 10, 12% of him.
Let's talk about the FanDuel side of things now, where we have way different pricing on pitchers. And once again, something that surprises me. Top Glass note, 11,000 on FanDuel is 12% owned. To me, it is just very uphill sledding for him to get through 6 innings and land in an optimal lineup at that kind of price point. Instead of playing him at 12% ownership, you got guys who are just way cheaper that I think have higher upside. I mean, Garrett Cole is 10,000. You got Nathan Eovaldi, 9,900. Flaherty, 9,800. Tanner Bybee is 9,400. He is the chalk over on FanDuel at 24% owned. If you're picking one pitcher to roster in a FanDuel GPP, Eric, which direction would you go in? And safe to say we're writing off Glass now at like weirdly popular ownership there too.
Yeah, weirdly at 12%, I would play 0 on FanDuel and feel pretty good about it. Garrett Cole, not as high on there as 15% with the field. Nathan Eovaldi, Jack Flaherty being $100 next to each other. I still prefer Eovaldi purely because of the 6 innings, because of that potential of getting to the bonus in Cleveland. The stadium's been playing up for lefty power. There's definitely lefty power to be had in the Cleveland lineup. Stephen Kwan up to double-digit home runs now on the season. You'd be making a fortune betting his home runs this year if you just bet it every single time out blindly. But I will say, I think if I were going to pull the trigger on Matt Waldron, this might be the spot. Sub 9K, fire a little bit up there. You don't have access to McDermott. He's not listed over on FanDuel, so that is just kind of a bummer for you over there. But I think Sean Manaea, also there's a reason to maybe get there. We've seen some strikeout stuff from him. I mean, they're 1.6 and 2.2% owned respectively. So like playing 150, I think I'd be overweight to both of them and trying to sneak them in. But otherwise, I'd feel pretty comfortable with one lineup making it Eovaldi no matter what anyway.
Yeah, Eovaldi for me as well. I don't know what that'll happen to Matt Waldron, but he can't get swing and misses anymore. Yeah. He was getting a ton of them. Remember how chalky and how frequently popular Matt Waldron was earlier in the season? In May, he had a 30% strikeout rate. In June, he had a 19% strikeout rate. In July, it's only 16% now. And as a result, too, all the underlying numbers have started to tank for Matt Waldron. I do wonder if maybe people have gotten hip to how his knuckleball moves, or maybe there's something that teams have been able to strategize against it, but the strikeouts are not there. Maybe it's to do with the time of the year. Maybe it doesn't move as much because of the heat or something. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on this, but like the drop in strikeout for Matt Waldron, it's crazy. It is half of what it was a couple months ago.
So one of the issues is that he's throwing the knuckleball and falling behind in counts. I saw a couple of reports on that from his start against, I think it was Washington. No, it was before the break. He made like a surprise Friday start before the All-Star break, and then they ended up putting Vasquez later in the weekend for whatever reason. But there were some reports about he's not getting ahead in counts with the knuckleball, and so he's having to throw the sweeper 4-seam fastball, and he's still a guy who only throws the knuckleball around 40% of the time. It has different velocities on it, which is also strange. It can kind of like dictate maybe he's not able to throw it as hard as what he was before. If you look over at Savant, it does a good job of when you have specific pitches that have huge range of outcomes, you'll see a very, very bulky curve where, you know, it's like a 6 to 7 mile per hour difference that he can throw on the knuckleball. And I think it all is dictated by whether or not he's ahead in counts. And if he gets behind and has to throw sweepers for 4-seamers to hold guys from walking, and he's never had a walk problem at any stage of his career, 6.9% last season, 6.7% this season, but has more to do with, you know, the hard hit is going to start trailing up. 32.7% was probably on the low end for a low velocity guy who doesn't have a ton of movement on his other pitches, but The knuckleball, I think it's still one that's pretty live to just any day you wake up and you just have it moving more, 6, 7 strikeouts. It doesn't really matter who you're facing then. You kind of want to be invested in low ownership on a guy like Matt Waldron.
And we got a super chat here from Chris Williams. He says, fun fact is he's the only player, as he is, sorry, not the only player, he's the player that has helped Chris have a mini heater recently. Tyler Fitzgerald is 1 home run away from getting into a group of only 25 other players. He's currently homered in 5 consecutive games. Eric, do you know the record for most consecutive games with a homer and who it is that holds that record? It's 3 players tied.
Okay, I have no idea, but I can guarantee you if it's a home run record, one of them has to be Barry Bonds.
It is not.
What?
One of them
No way.
I remembered because it happened. Actually, I don't know why I remember this. I guess because it happened in 1993, but I remember
team.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Okay,
So
Ken Griffey Jr.
Ken Griffey Jr., Don Mattingly, and Dale Long. I have no clue who the hell Dale Long is, but he's once had a streak of 8 consecutive games with homers. So Dale Long, Don Mattingly, Ken Griffey Jr., 8 games in a row with a homer. That is the MLB record. And that is where right now Tyler Fitzgerald is halfway to that record right there. Or sorry, more than halfway to that record. He's halfway to breaking the record. So Chris, thank you for that super chat there. But yeah, Tyler Fitzgerald. Let's see. Do I have lineups with Tyler Fitzgerald today? I know that I'm not playing very much of Tyler Glass now, but I am not exactly keen to stack against him either. Let's see. What do I have with Tyler Fitzgerald? I've 1 out of 150 lineups with him.
So you're getting a really good pitcher right off the get-go who's going to go 70, 75 pitches, and then you're going to get a good bullpen behind it. That's just not a fun situation to walk into.
Yeah, so none of him, well, 1 out of 150 lineups then for me. In general, none of him for me. But yeah, it would be cool if he goes out and continues that home run streak. Anything else you want to add at pitcher, Eric? If not, we'll build some lineups in the lineup generator.
Let's go to the lineup generator.
All right, let's check out the lineup generator, Jordan. Throw that up on screen. If you guys want to sign up for the lineup generator, sign up using the link we have below in the YouTube description box. It's less than $15. It builds lineups for you, lineups that are expected to be profitable in the long run in our simulations. We've got player projections in here, ownership. And you could also customize these lineups in multiple ways that you see fit, either by making some selections here. And let's go contrarian lineups.
Okay.
Let's go contrarian lineups, considering it's a smallish slate. And then you could also change out any of the individual players in these lineups if you want to make any kind of alterations to them using our player projections and ownership projections. And then once you're done building out your lineups, you'll see the exposure screen where will show you all the exposures that you have to individual players. Like right now, boy, it's giving us a lot of Tyler Glass. I don't like the Tyler Glass now. Eric and I have been over this. I know that our data and tools do like him, and he's clearly a fantastic pitcher. Arguably, if he can get hurt, he might be the favorite to win the Cy Young at this point, but I just can't really get there to Tyler Glass. Now, as far as the other pitchers that we're seeing here, Tanner Bybee, Garrett Cole, yeah, I like those guys. I'm sure if we scroll down, Nathan Eovaldi will be the next guy that's in our pitcher exposure here. Let's see if that's the case. Oh, no, Jack Flaherty, probably Eovaldi after that. Jordan really slow rolling the reveal. I don't know, Yariel Rodriguez. There's Eovaldi. All right, so I was wrong there, but there, yeah, Nathan Eovaldi did show up in some of those lineups. As far as stacks, we're getting to the Rangers, the Nationals, the Yankees, really spread out at stack here, Eric. And by the way, that's also kind of something that's shown by our top stacks tool, because there's not a single offense that we with a greater than 10% chance to be the highest scoring team on the slate. But what we do have instead is a bunch of teams that are 7 to 10% chance. So really spread out as far as the top overall offenses on the slate. Is there a particular offense that you have your eye on for single entry today?
Sure do.
I hope it's the same one as me. What is yours?
I don't think it's the same one as you. The Baltimore Orioles?
No, mine is the San Diego Padres.
Okay, I don't have them, no.
The Orioles are the team I have the most exposure to in large field tournaments. I just think they're going to be really popular in single entry.
Yeah, so I've got 3 max lineups that I've got reserved. One, I was looking at my Dodgers lineup, but then Robbie Ray's not going to pull any ownership. And then looking at number 2, thought Baltimore going up against Cabrera, because I think the most likely thing is he gets torched. Number 3 that I had listed was the New York Yankees, but you didn't even say them. So, I mean, San Diego, I get it. The highest top stack percentage, decent amount of leverage coming in on them. Mitchell Parker can give up the hard contact. I'd say negative regression probably coming towards him sometime super, super soon. But San Diego's been markedly better against right-handed pitching this season. I don't think that that's all that surprising. And I don't know. It feels as though, yeah, it feels as though they're going to be more popular than we have listed, but maybe I'm just crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it. Is this is a team that we just simply don't have expected to be popular. Also, while they still don't have Fernando Tatis, Xander Bogaerts is back now for
Mhm.
the Padres. And considering he was out for a little bit, and also the fact that he didn't have the best starts of the season in the early going, he's still really cheap. $3,900 for Xander Bogaerts. It is really easy. You could make a 5-man stack of the Padres with any of the 5 hitters you like, and you can play whatever pitchers in a secondary stack you like with them. They're very cheap.
Yeah, it's probably true. I
And
mean, I'm
once
not
again, how
playing, we're not
popular.
playing the expensive pitcher too, so we might as well get to, well, I mean, that's the thing is that I'm probably just getting to more Baltimore because I have more money to get to Adley Rushman, Gunnar Henderson, the whole gang that just continues to smash every single time out. But there's some cheap hitters on the Baltimore side, 5, 7, 8, sitting there 3,300, 3,400, 3,500 in the outfield with Kierstead, Kauser, and who's the last guy? Cedric Mullins. I mean, that's just, they're pretty affordable at the same time that they have crazy amount of upside in that lineup.
Yeah, it's my most roster team in large field GPPs. Just single entry. I'm going to go to the
I get it.
Padres, who I think are going
Mhm.
to be lower owned.
I
I
hope
think
so.
there's going to be a few teams that are going to be really popular in single entry that the field gravitates towards. And those are going to be the Rangers, the Orioles, the Rays. Those 3 teams are, I think, going to make up like 50 to 60% of the exposure of the field in single
Yep.
entry. And then I think everything else is just going to be contrarian.
That's probably true. There's God, I wanted to pull the trigger on the Dodgers. I just don't think that we're going to get any leverage there. And I don't know. Robbie Ray's pulling no ownership. So I'm just gonna have to play Robbie Ray. That'll be fun. Robbie Ray in single entry. There you go.
And the Dodgers are not all that popular either.
That's
So
what I'm getting at. They're not popular, and I want to do that, but I don't know. It feels like one of those slates. We're gonna get to the flip and see some really, really wonky ownership.
so if you had to guess then, which is the team that you think will either be chalk? Well, we'll do it both ways. Number one,
Mhm.
which is the team you think could be chalkier than expected, and which is the team that could be more contrarian than expected?
I think Tampa Bay could end up more contrarian. We've got them at what 10%, 10.7% ownership share. If you're going cheap, Yariel Rodriguez is the guy people tend to want to gravitate towards, and I think it's probably the correct choice as well. I think Baltimore ends up a little less popular in Miami. Maybe that's just me. I think Texas and yeah, Texas should end up being popular, and I do think San Diego ends up popular too. But again, it just kind of depends on where you're looking, and just we're getting some weird ownership on some of these slates. I mean, we have 11 minutes to go. I don't want to take too much time just talking through why I think that is. But when you're using simulations and you're kind of all targeting the same type of discrepancies, I think there are going to be times that people concentrate around the same chalk where it's like, oh, this looks really underutilized. And that's where I'm worried about San Diego is that if you just had me look at a chart and see every single team's top stack percentage and then be like, oh, they're drastically underowned, I would pick San Diego, I think, every single time. But I think the field does too. And that just has me worried a little bit.
If I had to guess, I think the Dodgers could end up being a little bit more popular
Okay.
just because Robbie Ray, his minor league results were okay, not great. He was also somebody who, in the limited amount of time, well, actually, he only made 1 start last year and pitched 3 innings before getting hurt. So that went poorly. But there could just be people that look at the numbers and be like, oh, Robbie Ray making his first start of the season had an 8 ERA last year, pitching against the Dodgers. And they might go click on them. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers end up coming in more popular than expected. But yeah, I really do think we're going to see the Padres be relatively low owned. That is the team that I have overall the second most exposure to in large field GPPs. It's my single entry team, but the team that I mentioned before that I do have the most of in large field GPPs, it is the Baltimore Orioles. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, start building up some FanDuel lineups. And then while you're doing that, I'll also ask Eric, are there any contrarian teams, like really low owned stacks that you're finding yourself getting to?
A couple of shares of Cleveland up against Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty's fantastic, but this is a Cleveland team that just has upside from the left side of the plate against any righty pretty much. And it's a ballparking progressive field that's just constantly up, up, up. I mean, Stephen Kwan last year had 6 home runs. He's up to 10 already, and it's July 24th. So it's definitely a ballpark that is played shorter for these lefties. And I think Naylor, Ramirez, him, Brennan, all these guys make sense. Is like, if I'm getting to one contrarian stack where you told me one top end pitcher ends up getting lit up, I think I like the Cleveland side of it purely because of the way the ballpark and the lineup are constructed.
It is the Dodgers for me right now. I have 13% Dodgers stacks, but like I said, I'm wondering if maybe they do end up coming in a little bit more owned than projected, because we currently have the Dodgers projected to be the lowest owned team that isn't going up against one of the popular pitchers. So you've got the Mets, the Giants, the Guardians, the Tigers, the White Sox. Those 5 teams are all 3% owned or less. But then you've got the Dodgers only slightly more popular. They're going up against Robbie Ray and all those teams we just mentioned. It's generally either bad offenses or just offense going up against bad pitchers. So I am like 3x the field on the Dodgers relative to our ownership projections. I am just a little bit of a gut feeling that they potentially come in a little bit more popular. But either way, I'm fairly sure I'm going to end up being overweight to them. But here's what we got on FanDuel now. And once again, a lot of Tyler Glass now. Don't need to beat a dead horse. Eric and I don't like him. Other teams that we're getting to, or I should say other pitchers, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, Jordan. Yeah, there's Tanner Bybee showing up in a bunch of lineups, followed by Jack Flaherty. And then I'm sure we will see Nathan Eovaldi here soon. Yeah, there he is. Second time's the charm. Nathan Eovaldi right there. He's showing up in some lineups as well. So if you don't want to go ahead and play Tyler Glass now, those are some other pitchers you could consider. As far as our stack exposures here on FanDuel, the Nationals, the Rangers, the Yankees, the Padres, the Rays, all in 20+% of lineup. So just like over on DK, the ownership's also really spread out on the FanDuel side of things, Eric. Is there any in particular offense on FanDuel do you think looks like the one to go to if you're making one lineup for large field GPPs? And once again, it's the same sort of deal here where the ownership's kind of spread out on FanDuel. You do have the Texas Rangers pulling 14% ownership, so a little bit more popular than everybody else. What's the one team that stands out the most to you, though?
Interesting to see Washington, the team that we're getting to the most there. Not a team that we had brought up, but I don't completely hate it. Matt Waldron has been getting hit up to some extent, and I think, if there is something underlying that we're not getting information about with Matt Waldron, it'll become apparent when he gets put on the IL after giving up 7 to the Nationals today. So totally understand that that's an all right way to go about your life. I think the one team that looks a little bit better for me, I'm just kind of cross-referencing, Kansas City's a team I'm more apt to get to over on FanDuel, where you're playing 4, and I can get to Witt and Perez. When I start to getting to some of these 5-mans, I don't really like the look of them. We're getting some pronounced chalk on cheapies, like the Adam Frazier guy has just been insanely popular here. Former Padre and Pirate great Adam Frazier. That's always been kind of a weird one in my lineups, but I guess he's leading off yet again, 3,300. He'll probably end up a little bit more popular over on DK than what I'm willing to tango with as kind of a one-off or so. But Bobby Witt Jr. is on another planet, brought that up yesterday, and you can continue just jamming him in every single one of these spots. But I think FanDuel, I like those 4-mans a lot more than I like the 5-mans I'm looking at on DK.
Yeah, and we've got some questions in Discord now. Mr. Coolcam had asked what our favorite FanDuel contrarian stack is, and I agree with you. I think it's the Kansas City Royals. Great matchup against Ryan Nelson, and they're a lot more popular on DraftKings than FanDuel. So if you're playing on both sites, one of the ways you could play a contrarian team on FanDuel that isn't contrarian on DraftKings, going and playing the Kansas City Royals. So Mr. Coolcam, the Royals. G Doe 213 says, any weather issues in Washington? No, nothing that I'm like getting off of tonight because of any sort of weather issues. Nothing like that Braves game last night. So good to play the Nationals Padres game. And then Einstein wants to know, do we have any interest in the Nationals as a stack, Eric? I mean, we just built lineups in the lineup generator. We got to some of the Nationals, and yeah, I do have some National stacks here, Einsteinium, and it's for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned before, where there's just this weird drop off in Matt Waldron, where he's not been able to generate swing and misses over the last couple of months, where he was generating a lot of them earlier on in the year. And as a result, you've got this pitcher who was not good last year, was terrible throughout his minor league career, and then all of a sudden was a world beater at the start of the season. Considering the historical information we have on Matt Waldron, I think he's much more likely to just be a can going forward than he is to regain the kind of form he had earlier on in the year. 2023 in AAA, Matt Waldron had a 7.31 ERA, a 5.44 FIP. 2022 in AAA, Matt Waldron did an 8.44 ERA and a 6.08 FIP. Then you go back to 2021. Matt Waldron in AA had a 6.61 ERA, a 4.15 FIP. So he comes out of nowhere this year. Now you start to wonder, did he just have 10 starts that were a fluke? That seems a lot more likely to me than the fact that all of these other starts he had in the minor leagues were terrible. I know that he pitches in really hitter-friendly parks in the minor leagues, but that still doesn't excuse not being able to generate strikeouts or having an ERA of like 8. So, yeah, I think the Nationals are a reasonable contrarian stack today. Are you building any lineups with them?
Yep, I've got a number of like pieces of a little bit here, a little bit there. CJ Abrams, Lane Thomas. I've been playing lots of at the top of this lineup. We're seeing James Wood start to creep up, but still 4.2K for a guy with a ton of power facing anybody in the platoon, I think is a pretty decent spot. Eventually, we'll see the loft come up for him. It's the back half of the lineup. I've said this about a couple of these ones where, again, these really stand out for FanDuel, especially. Wish I were playing more over there today, but 1 through 5, really, really like Washington. You have to mix in a couple of guys. Riley Adams at catcher, I'm fine with that at 3.3K. Jacob Young, number 9 hole, just fine there. 2.7K for Lipscomb, like just fine. Yeah, Washington, definitely a team that I have pieces of.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is that, because I know people are talking about, like we just had Comment God in chat who was saying that the skies really dark in Washington, at least according to what I'm looking at for the weather. Like maybe they have to start in a rain delay and it's an issue in the early going. I would be very surprised if it's an issue throughout the night. This should be passing and then we should be good to go. So yeah, maybe we get a rain delay at some point, but I'm not overly concerned about this game. Anything that you would revisit about the weather there in Washington?
Nope, I think it looks fine. If we get an alert, I think it'll be a late start if anything, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, could be some weather there, potentially thunderstorms, but not anything that I think should make the game get postponed or anything like that. Johnny McIntyre left us a $25 super chat. Says just shipped the MLB four-seamer, finished alone in first and second place thanks to the MLB Sim. So shout out to Johnny. If anybody else wants to sign up for the Sims or any other products here at Stochastic, once again, links are down below in the YouTube description box. And I've also got a video that I put up, what was it, 2 weeks ago, last week on how to use our Sims tool. So if you guys do want some information on how to use that, you check it out on the YouTube channel over there. Eric, we only got a couple minutes left to go here. Who's the home run pick of today? Let's get some Dong picks before we sign off for the night.
Ooh, I had a lot of good bets that I feel good about coming up here. I'm going to post some more for the evening window. I got a couple of them that stand out, I think, in the Kansas City, Arizona game, just from a price perspective. But I posted this one before, and I'll say it again. Yankees, we didn't talk about them at all, facing Sean Manaea, but left on left, Juan Soto is plus 500 at BetMGM. At least he was earlier in the day. I don't know how you get 5-1 on Juan Soto, period. And a number of the bullpen arms I think they'd bring in going to be right-handed to face Gleyber Torres, Aaron Judge. A smack dab between them, the lefty who's absolutely on fire. Juan Soto goes yard today, plus 500.
All right, let me pull up my lineups here. I mean, I don't know how the answer for the most likely one is in Gunnar Henderson today, but not going to go in that direction. I'll go with
Did you see Gunnar Henderson's odds?
What are they?
They are high. You need to go bet it like now before that game starts if you like Gunnar Henderson that much. Let me double check because I think I saw him at plus 600 earlier today.
Interesting.
Yeah,
well, Manny Machado is going to be my home run pick for the purposes of my stacks and the show and whatnot here. But
plus 550 on DK best available. That's weird to say. DK plus 550. It was plus 600 earlier today.
All right, so some people have bet and it's come down, unfortunately. But Manny Machado is going to be my home run pick for the night. We'll see some of the home run picks that we have from chat for the next minute here, and then we are going to log off for the night. Comment God is going for a double dong for Cedric Mullins. Sotex is going with Teoscar Hernandez. Chad Rock has got Corey Seager. Andy Melman has got Adam Frazier. We've got Folk Matt going with Judge and Ohtani. Dangerous Dave also going with Manny Machado. Mike Campbell has got Kyle Higashioka. Obi-Wan has got Juan Yepez. We've got B Funk going with George Springer. And then we've got Charles Moran going with a double dong night for Randy Arozarena. Malukar is also going with Gunnar Henderson. And then we've got Anthony Santander from Tripp, Adley Rushman from Aaron Hines. Reg Kell is going with Andy Pajes. And that is going to do it for us today, guys. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Underdog for sponsoring the show. Have a great night, guys, and I'll see you with Josh tomorrow afternoon. Early MLB Live before lock. All afternoon games tomorrow. Peace out.